Today, I will share with you a murder case that took place in Taiwan in 1994. The victim was found dead in the parking lot of a school's basement, with a muddy face and her lower body completely exposed. After the incident, the police launched an intense investigation, and the news made the front pages of newspapers across Taiwan. However, no suspects were found. It wasn't until a time when no one expected it that the truth was unexpectedly revealed, leaving the people of Taiwan shuddering and reflecting on their own parenting methods. Neihu is a district in the eastern part of Taipei, Taiwan, attracting both domestic and international visitors with its Dihu Park, which boasts a picturesque landscape with a lake, bridges, temples, and even mountain trails ideal for hiking and perfect for enjoyable outdoor excursions. Until then, when people mentioned Neihu, it was associated with relaxation and peaceful surroundings. But one day in 1994, everything started to change. On the morning of October 15, 1994, Tanho Elementary School in the Neihu district of Taipei was hosting an outdoor party. The sound of children laughing was vibrant and filled the air. As the afternoon party came to an end, students and teachers began to leave the school one by one. A young female teacher, Ms. Wu, 25 years old, had a shift at the school that day and thought there would be no work left for her in the afternoon. So she grabbed a bucket and went down to the school's basement parking lot to wash her car. Along the way, she waved goodbye to the students, and other teachers also waved and prepared to head home. Ms. Wu went alone to the basement parking lot and began washing her car. At that moment, two figures, one tall, one short, noticed that no one else was around. So they slowly approached her. The tall one suddenly grabbed her. She was startled and turned around, seeing the two men, which left her shocked. She immediately tried to resist and scream for help. However, unfortunately, there were only the three of them in the basement. The taller man, unable to keep calm any longer, shouted for the smaller figure to come help restrain Ms. Wu, all while gripping tightly around her neck to keep her from screaming. Ms. Wu struggled for a moment but couldn't break free, feeling her breath grow shallow until she slowly slipped into unconsciousness. From that moment on, the two, one tall, one short, looked at her with a hungry gaze and moved closer, their actions full of menace. That late afternoon, another female teacher from the school went down to the underground parking lot to get her car and get ready to drive home. At that moment, she saw not far away a woman lying on her back on the ground, with the lower part of her body completely uncovered. She froze and exclaimed, "What's going on here?" As she got closer, the scene made her head spin, and she gasped for breath, staggering backward. Lying on the ground was a woman with tangled hair, a mud-streaked face, and her clothes pushed up, exposing her neck. She seemed unable to stand. Her body and legs curled up, forming a strange shape in the space. After receiving the report, the Neihu District Police team quickly arrived at the scene. However, upon seeing the situation there, the investigators were immediately stunned. The crime scene looked like it had been turned into a funeral home, completely destroyed. A large group of teachers and school staff were arranging incense sticks and temporarily burning a few in front of the cold body of the unfortunate teacher. They carefully covered her body with a white cloth, right in the middle of the schoolyard. Where did the teachers get that white cloth? Actually, back in 1994, at elementary schools in Taipei City, teachers often had to take night shifts, and there was a shared bed in the duty room. That sheet was taken from that very bed. What seemed like a kind and respectful gesture turned out to be the very white cloth that broke the forensic investigators' spirits as soon as they arrived at the scene. Because when they saw Ms. Wu's body, their first reaction was to suspect a sexual assault case. That meant bodily fluids and the perpetrator's hair were extremely important pieces of evidence for the investigation. But if they used that same sheet the one used to cover the victim, while many other teachers might have laid on it before, then their hair could have accidentally stuck to Ms. Wu's body. With no other choice, they had to continue examining Ms. Wu's body to look for more clues. After some time inspecting the scene, the forensic team noted that her glasses, shoes, and other belongings were scattered around the crime scene. The victim's body showed signs of being dragged. Because she wasn't fully dressed, the police suspected that Wu might have suffered some form of assault before she died. However, the autopsy report showed that there were no unusual fluids inside Ms. Wu's body. Strangely enough, what the forensic team actually found was human saliva. What is going? The investigation team was completely baffled. They couldn't identify the killer from the saliva sample alone. So what about the fingerprints? On Ms. Wu's neck, there were clear marks from a strong grip, so experts believe the perpetrator might have left fingerprints while applying pressure to her neck. Her neck became the focal point for gathering evidence. But things weren't that simple. The experts faced a tougher challenge. Human neck skin and fingers are coated with a layer of amino acids, making it extremely difficult to detect fingerprints on that area. Indeed, just as they had predicted, the attempt to collect fingerprints ended in failure. Another surprising discovery: the dark red mark on Ms. Wu's neck, initially thought to be the main cause of death, was later confirmed by forensic doctors not to be fatal. The police immediately reviewed all the investigation details from the crime scene and discovered another notable point: Ms. Wu's face covered in mud. According to the forensic team's examination and cleaning of the body, the layer of mud on her face wasn't thin. It was as thick as 20 centimeters. After a thorough autopsy, they found that not only her face, but also her mouth and windpipe were filled with mud. In other words, Ms. Wu had been suffocated by the thick layer of mud on her face. But this was a well-built school, with the entire courtyard paved with tiles and covered in cement. So where did all that mud come from? To solve this tricky question, the forensic team teamed up with the police investigators. They found some fire-retardant sand in the underground parking lot. The police suspected that the killer had probably mixed this sand with water and then applied it to Ms. Wu's face. But even with this detail from her body, it still wasn't enough to find the cold-blooded murderer. The police continued to focus their investigation on the surrounding environment, especially Ms. Wu's car. On closer inspection, the parking spot was very unusual. Her car was parked halfway up the sloped section of the lot. This suggested that the killer had initially intended to drive the car out of the basement, but for some reason, gave up halfway through. It was reasoned that there might still be clues, specifically the killer's fingerprints left behind on Ms. Wu's car. Fingerprint experts used cyanoacrylate, a chemical compound, to process and reveal the fingerprints. After careful and meticulous work, they finally found fingerprints on the car window and on a tissue pack inside Ms. Wu's car. Finally, they found a new lead, but whose fingerprints were they? The investigation team worked day and night, comparing fingerprints against existing databases. Every teacher and staff member at the school was called in for questioning. However, no leads emerged. Even the chief investigator in charge of the case, Mr. Wu Zhenqi, who was actually Ms. Wu's own father, tried desperately to seek justice for his daughter, but to no avail. But unfortunately, no new clues emerged, and the case gradually became a cold case with no resolution. That is until one ordinary day in 2002, 8 years later, Mr. Wu Zhenqi, now the head of the Keelung City Police Department, was in tears as he looked at a portrait of his beloved daughter. Suddenly, he heard a strange clack-clack sound. The portrait of his dear daughter suddenly fell to the floor. This left him shaken and deep in thought, as if the incident was a sign that something was about to happen. And just as if it had been foretold, 2 days later, the center that specializes in cold cases suddenly received news. The owner of the fingerprint had been identified in Taiwan. There is a facility known as the Cold Case Center, a place where DNA and fingerprints of various suspects are stored and periodically cross-checked against the national database. During one of these routine comparisons, investigators discovered that the fingerprint collected from Ms. Wu's case matched that of a young man named Wang Difeng, 23 years old. Police quickly launched a background investigation and confirmed that Huang Jifeng had once attended Xinhua Elementary School and was currently being prosecuted for a sexual assault charge. A more detailed examination revealed that not only did the fingerprints match, but even the palm prints found on the car window belonged to Huang Jifeng. After being arrested, Huang Jifeng was momentarily stunned under the interrogation of the special agents. His bewildered expression seemed to ask, "How did the police know I committed a crime 8 years ago? Was it some kind of mysterious force?" After all those years, perhaps deep down, he had always carried a vague sense that one day Miss Wu would, in some inexplicable way, make sure he paid for what he had done after realizing that the police had solid evidence against him. Huang Jifeng quickly confessed to his crime. He also revealed the identity of his accomplice, Wang Yuchuan, who was 19 years old, 8 years earlier. Wang Jifeng and Wang Yuchuan were neighbors who shared a disturbing interest. They were obsessed with watching Taiwan's Rainbow Channel, a now-defunct TV station that aired adult content 24 hours a day. On the afternoon of the incident, the two of them saw Ms. Wu alone in the school's underground parking lot. Dark thoughts began to creep in, and eventually, they gave in to the monsters inside themselves. However, at that moment, neither of them knew how to properly act in such a situation. Even though they had seen things on television, they didn't understand the details clearly. What followed was an assault on Ms. Wu. According to their own statements, Ms. Wu was struck forcefully on the neck, causing her to lose consciousness. Not knowing whether she had passed away or not, they continued to apply even more force. After a while, one of them noticed a large pile of fire-extinguishing sand near the staircase. They dragged Ms. Wu up the stairs and mixed the sand with water, then smeared it over her face. In this way, Ms. Wu was ultimately killed by the impact. One more cruel detail, according to the confession of these two depraved individuals. They had heard from adults about a local folk belief that after someone dies, their face must be covered, or else their spirit will return to seek revenge. Without hesitation, they covered Ms. Wu's face with a stone. At the time of the crime, both of them were minors. Huang Jifeng was only 15 years old, a student at Tanhu Elementary School, and had just graduated from junior high that same year. Meanwhile, Wang Yuchuan was only 11 years old and still in the 5th grade at elementary school. According to Taiwanese law, criminal acts committed by anyone under the age of 14 are not punishable. Since Wang Yuchuan was only 11 years old when he committed the crime, even if he was arrested later as an adult and held criminally responsible, he would only face warnings or rehabilitative education measures. As for Wang Jifeng, although he was only 15 at the time of the crime, for some unknown reason, he was later given a reduced sentence simply because he was still a minor back then. Before this case, experts generally believed that pornographic websites were the root cause of children committing sexual offenses. In today's digital age, kids can easily access obscene content through smartphones or tablets, more than ever. It's crucial to educate and raise awareness among children about gender issues and consensual sexual relationships. Ultimately, we hope everyone understands that children or teenagers committing crimes is a serious social concern. It requires parents to regularly pay attention to their kids' psychological and emotional development, provide proper guidance, and equip them with essential life skills to help them avoid the traps of life and prevent heartbreaking consequences like this case.